Welcome to another edition of Conversations of the Heart. As always, it's your boy Tito. We have a very, very special guest today, an esteemed guest. We have Jane Johnson Wall. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist, practicing virtually in California, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and Florida. Into some new states coming soon. Her practice is women-centered with an additional niche in parental and maternal mental health, including perennial loss, birth trauma. She really loves helping women feel empowered and connecting to their inner badass as they navigate through the various phases of their lives, right? Jane really, really wants them to feel supported as they journey through the healing process. One of the most foundational components of a successful therapy experience, according to Jane, is the interpersonal connection between a therapist and the client. Her clients would describe her as being relatable and easygoing. As she would always like to say, is that she lives the lives because they are in the real world too, right? So, she lives in the real world just like everyone else. And I love that. As someone who is in therapy always, right? I love a therapist that is lives among, right? Not above
I'm a
me.
therapist in therapy as well, because I think that's such an important thing. If your therapist
Ooh,
is not in
I wanna,
therapy, you should revisit that.
ooh,
Oh,
I
we'll
wanna,
put a pin in
I
that.
wanna
That's a
touch
whole
on that.
conversation.
I want to
Yeah.
touch on that.
Yeah.
Um, the one thing that she does lovingly is she'll always call people out on their shit, and I love it. Because I'm a person that loves accountability. And call me out, please. Call me out
I
and let me
will.
know. Put the mirror in front of my face and tell me you
It's
messed it
always
up.
with love from the bottom of my heart. That's how I always preface it. I'm like, I'm going to say this with love from the bottom of my heart.
Yes, yes, and but also as a part of Jane's work in the field, right? She has co-created the Mother Load Collective with her colleague Kelsey Mitchell. That's really much a part of their commitment to supporting mothers, and that is an amazing feat. And we are going to get into that. But they also believe that mothers should be supported, and if their mothers are supported, then their families will thrive, and they are committed to expanding their offerings in this realm, and that is a beautiful thing. So I said a mouthful, ladies and gentlemen, but is necessary because how we do here at Conversations of the Heart, we want to make sure that the person is introduced properly, um, and
Thank
right,
you.
because she
Thank
has
you.
accomplished a lot in her career, and we are going to get into all of that as we continue on this journey, this series that I am on in regards to
I love it.
postpartum.
I
Um,
love it. I love that you're doing this. Truly.
yes, yeah. So first, Jane, welcome to the show.
Thank
Welcome,
you.
and thank you
It's
for
great to
being a
be
part
here.
of this. I definitely love to get your side of things, especially from the clinical
Yeah,
side,
sure.
and then your own personal experiences. So you kind of have the best
Yeah,
of both worlds, and I'm
I
so
do.
appreciative of you taking the time.
I love
Um,
it.
so if I missed anything in my intro about you that you want to
No,
share,
you got it. I have in there that I'm a mom? Like I always offer to people, especially working with moms, um, that I'm a mom too. So my kids are 22 and 21 and affectionately dubbed surprise and shock. Like I rolled into motherhood in a way that I did not see coming. And I always say out of all of the things that, quote unquote, like I've accomplished, right? And things that I've
Mhm.
worked towards, like the job, air quotes, that I have always found to be the toughest but the most rewarding is being a mom. So I think that that's an important piece of who I am
Surprise and
too.
shock. At 22, you said, yeah, a 22-year-old. No, you don't look anything
22.
past 22
Oh,
yourself.
you're
Come on
very
now.
sweet. Thank
Come
you. Yeah, it
on.
must be a good filter or something. Thank you.
So, so let's start early. Why the road to becoming a licensed marriage and family therapist?
Oh, I mean, I think that it was something that really kind of unfolded for me. It wasn't something that I had actively pursued. Um, I initially had thought that I wanted to be an attorney, go figure, but working in family law. And then it just kind of some twists and turns came my way. And this was just kind of something that I hadn't really thought about. I had not been in therapy. And
Hmm.
so it was just kind of this unique kind of parallel process of learning about the field of therapy and realizing that it was something that really resonated with me and helped me realize that it was actually going to allow me to serve families in the way that I wanted to, right? Like that family
Wow.
law was not going to allow me to really be able to get into the nitty gritty. Or if it did, I probably wouldn't have been a very successful attorney.
Right.
So it just really kind of allowed me to meet what I had envisioned for myself as far as the role. So that's how it came together.
I love that. And,
Yeah,
in your practice now, you have, a couple of niches, right?
I
But
do.
on maternal mental health. So how did you pick, where you really wanted to really practice, and how did you narrow that down?
So that also just kind of came to me. So that's just bouncing around through life
Hey.
too, letting things come my way. I like to think of it as I'm always open, right?
Hmm.
That I'm open to the things that unfold. So I worked in a variety of roles early in my career. I worked in treatment foster care with kids who were in the system and were having challenges, their families. It really, I learned a lot about attachment and bonding, all of those sorts of things. And so then as I kind of rolled from all things treatment foster care in that capacity, I did some school-based programming, and then I opened up my private practice, and I've done everything. I've worked with couples, I've worked with kids, I've worked with families. The rolling into and the evolution into doing all things maternal
Hmm.
really just kind of came to me. I kind of joke the moms came and they let me know what they needed.
Mm.
I just saw that there were real gaps in what moms needed. And I had my own experience, obviously, as a mom,
Hmm.
but I was realizing that it saddened me that not much had changed. At that point, my kids were, 10 years old, 15 years old. It really saddened me that not much had changed.
Oh.
And so, I had people come to me, they were navigating through infertility, people who were navigating through pregnancy loss. That's a whole other niche that I have is
Mm.
perinatal and infant loss.
Mm.
So people navigating through infertility, miscarriages, things like stillbirth or termination for medical reasons.
Mm.
Um, and I just realized that these populations were really being underserved. And
Mm.
so it became clear to me that it made sense to really honor that being a mom is truly my favorite role that I have. So wanting to support women through that, but also just recognizing that the loss piece I had had referrals come to me from hospitals, and they in essence said to people, "This is someone who's certified in grief and bereavement. That may be a good person for you to meet with." And I realized that there was so much more that was involved with perinatal loss, and I wanted to honor that for these families. The one thing I'll say about my job is that it is such an honor for people to share their biggest vulnerabilities with me, and I think
Mm.
I will always stand in awe of that. So
Hmm.
that's how the maternal kind of focus came to be.
Wow. I love
Yeah.
that. And I love the work that you're doing, because I think it's so necessary, especially when we're talking about couples and women going through infant loss, right?
Hmm.
Postpartum,
Yeah.
right? These are all things that, can affect you, and not you, but just, the person, that people that's going through it in a major way.
Hmm.
It could affect couples, marriages,
Absolutely.
a lot of just different things, because
Yeah.
things change, right?
Hmm.
As I'm going through this series, like I said, I've learned that 1 in 10 men get postpartum, and those are the ones that just report
Absolutely.
it. So,
Yes.
men are good
Well,
at reporting things, right? Yeah,
I was going to say, and
yeah,
also
yeah.
identifying it. So
Right.
from a societal lens, right? Like we look at the societal expectations that are put on men. And
Hmm.
the idea that men don't get sad, they get mad, right? Like anger is the appropriate expression, right?
Right.
Society
Yep.
will accept that. So it's not even that it's reported as much as is it even identified. So it's not like men identify it within themselves and then
Right.
somehow feel shame and don't report it. Nobody knows what the hell's going on.
Wow.
And with men, this idea of like postpartum depression or anxiety
Hmm.
shows up later. So for women, we kind of have that idea of you're in the postpartum experience, right? Like
Hmm.
everyone who's given birth is in postpartum. But then when you're looking at the idea of a postpartum mood disorder, recognizing that for women, we know that it usually happens soon, right? We say to women, if
Hmm.
it's been 2 or 3 weeks since you've had your baby and you're still dealing with mood issues, then it could be that you're experiencing postpartum mood disorder.
Wow.
But for men, it typically happens months later. So it
Mm.
actually doesn't even line up with the experience of, oh, we just had a baby. Here's what's happened. Their baby is 6 or 8 months old. And
Mm.
so it's almost like mothers are kind of finding their stride and fathers seem to start to struggle.
Wow. Ladies and
Yeah.
gentlemen, I just learned something new.
Oh,
Six to
well,
8 months after.
yeah. Oh, it shows up later.
Wow.
Not all the time, like
Right, of
certainly,
course.
but in general,
Hmm.
for fathers or for any non-birth parent, it will
Right.
show up later. Yeah,
Wow. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that too. Thank you for educating
absolutely.
me. I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
No, I
And
love
that's one
that.
of the reasons why I wanted to do this series is because, as a person for me who loves the realm of mental health and who is an
Mhm.
advocate for, especially with grief and mental health and I'm an advocate for therapy, right? I know for me, one of my goals was just also to be a better support to my friends
Yeah.
who are going through, if families is going through. And then also one day, right, if I have a spouse, right, or when I have a spouse
Mhm.
and they're going through, I want to be educated, right, right.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
and so for me, it's about, well, how can I be a better advocate for my friends right now,
Mhm.
um, in case they're going through, right? So
Yes.
and then at that point, like as I dove a little deeper, I'm like, this needs to be highlighted a
Well,
lot
I was
more.
going to say it's more than one conversation, and I love that
Yes,
you are committing more than one conversation to it.
yes,
Um,
yes.
through a societal lens, women as girls and as daughters, as friends, they have more exposure to kind of just the casual even narratives around all things pregnancy, childbirth, parenting. Men do not have as much exposure to that. And so transitioning into the role of parenthood is huge for both parents.
Right.
But again, women have had a little bit more of that conversation, a little bit more information,
Mhm.
and men are just not exposed to that. So I love that you are leading the conversations because it does need to be more than one. And I love that
Yeah,
you recognize the need and are rising to the occasion.
thank you. I appreciate that. So you said, you are a mother, and a good one, great one. And
Thank you. Thank you.
so, what was your experiences like, right, through the process of you pregnant, childbirth, afterwards? What was your experience like?
So 50% of pregnancies are unexpected. We
Hmm.
don't talk about that enough. That kind of surprises most people. I joke and I say 100% of mine were unexpected. But the bottom line is we talk about the challenges that come in for couples who are navigating things like IVF, having
Mm,
fertility challenges. But there is an element of surprise and a whole kind of process that comes into play for people who are finding out news of pregnancy without anticipating that that was going to be a next step for them.
mm,
And so, I would say to people, like, a lot happened in my life very, very quickly.
mm,
And then the fact that my older daughter was 6 months old when I found out I was pregnant with my second one, like, I was kind of at times moving through in a haze because
mm,
it was full on baby mode. And so that became difficult. I ultimately had paused my career, right, to be home with my girls, which
mhm,
was such a blessing, right? What a privilege to be able to do that. But it also took away a huge part of my identity and really made being a mom such a key focal point.
mhm,
And that brought some challenges too. It was just at times I felt like I was lost in that focus of how did I fit with it, and really just focused on what was it that my babies needed. And
mm,
so, it was a hard way to transition. There were so many advantages as they got older, right? They developmentally were very much so in similar places.
hmm
But I say to people, I don't know if I had postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety. I think I had a special case of PPO, postpartum overload. Like it
mm,
just was a lot to navigate through. And I had some support, not as much support as I needed, but I also fully acknowledge I wasn't in a place where I could even identify what I needed to
mm,
advocate for myself. So
mm,
that's one of the things that I talk to couples about is it's
mm,
like people will ask you what you need and it's okay for you to be like, I have no fucking idea. Like I don't know what I need.
mm,
And that's where you want people, and that's what I try to do is kind of help people troubleshoot and anticipate what they might need because
mm,
that was, I think, a key part that was missing for me.
mm. Wow. And
Yeah.
if and if and let's just say, right, there's someone out there who doesn't know what they need, right? What would you tell them?
That it's okay to not know what you need, although it feels very unfamiliar because, in general, as we navigate the world, we have a pretty good sense of what we need. When you are looking at things through the lens of pregnancy, postpartum, and parenting, you're in
Mm,
a whole new world. And so it's okay to be open to ideas of what other people may think that you need, right? That idea. And as somebody who, also focuses on grief, you understand that idea of where people say, if you need anything, let me know. And they mean that sincerely,
mm,
but it can be difficult for someone to take them up on that. It
mm,
can be more helpful to say, I'm willing to cook meals for you. I am willing to do a Target pickup for you. I'm willing to walk your dog, pick up, laundry, whatever it may be. Offering people concrete things as a reference point can help them sometimes recognize, oh, these may be some things that I need. And these are the sorts of things that I can ask for.
mm. Powerful, powerful. So, as we're on this journey with postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety, um, from a clinical perspective, from your expertise,
Yeah.
what are some things that we'll start here with women that, or mothers that are pregnant, or or let's just say somebody who's single, right?
Hmm.
Single woman who wants to get pregnant one day. Is there anything that they can do to begin to really learn, to begin to prepare, for resources, for things, to be proactive rather than reactive, right?
Hmm.
Is there anything from your bird's eye view that they can begin to do just to gain a little bit more knowledge surrounding this subject?
Well, all right. So listening to podcasts like yours, right?
Hmm
But I think being able to, before we even get into the things that you can do, I, I think it's the things that you can do for yourself. So a big part of what comes up for women with the transition into motherhood is that we are suddenly bearing the weight of all of the internalized societal narratives that
hmm
we've just blindly incorporated, right?
hmm
And men have this as well, boys experience it as well, but looking at it through the lens of girls, young women, and women, it's the idea of what constitutes a good girl, a good daughter, a good student, and then all of that filters into our identity of what makes a good mother. And so what we need to do is unpack some of that and recognize that we may have these default visions of what we think constitutes a good mother, how we would know that we are a good mother. And we
hmm
need to unpack some of that stuff. And that, I mean, just spoiler alert, women in general need to do that. But I think that what happens is women navigate through life without really needing to to unpack that and deal with the repercussions.
hmm
But motherhood is such a triggering time where all of that comes crashing down because, in essence, people are navigating uncharted territory, a new domain, and they
hmm
judge themselves thinking that they're doing it poorly because it is not meeting up to their internalized, romanticized vision.
Wow. And I
Yeah.
say sometimes that people, I think society sometimes paints parenthood as like this Disney thing. Since you're young, it's this guy, oh, like this is the most beautiful thing in the world, right? And I'm not saying that it's not,
Absolutely.
but there's also other sides to the story,
And that's
right?
what I was going to say. Yeah, no, what we
Right?
need to normalize is the both and, right? Not the either
Right.
or. Yeah.
Right. And I think as you're
Yeah.
growing up, just like marriage, as you grow up,
Hmm.
it's marriage and fairy tales and movies and Prince Charmings and this
Well,
and it's
if you
that.
just love somebody enough, right? Like if it's
Hmm.
true love, right, then it's going
Yeah,
to be fine. And it's like, no, it's not. I
exactly.
what I what I say to people is, we talk about this idea of that you give birth and you look at this beautiful baby and you're going to know a depth of love that you've never known before. And what I
Mm,
say to people is, or you're not, because that puts so much pressure on
mm,
this one pinnacle moment. And I'm like,
mm.
you're going to be a little tired. You might be a little overwhelmed. Don't hold yourself to a standard of falling instantly in love. Does that happen for people? Absolutely. But I think that we unfortunately focus too much on making that the expected norm. And when people have the experience that doesn't align with it, again, because what would a good mother do?
Mm.
When you don't align with that experience, then the assumption becomes that you're a bad mother.
Wow, wow.
And that's an internalized assumption, not that other people have that,
Right.
but who are you going to share that with? I just had a baby and
Hmm.
I think I'm a bad mom. And so women just kind of sit with the guilt, the discomfort, and the shame.
Wow, wow. In this period of my life, I kind of, I'm preparing for future in terms of
Yeah,
just want, even through therapy and things like that, right? I think it's very important for me to unpack things that have gone on in life, childhood, adulthood, all these things
absolutely.
before I get to parenthood or even
Hmm.
marriage, parenthood, those steps, right?
Yeah.
Because I want to unpack as much stuff as possible before I hit those milestones and those things. And I'm not saying that
Yeah.
everything is going to be gone and it's because I know that's not
That's an unrealistic expectation. Yeah, no,
right.
good. I'm glad. Yeah. People need to realize that.
Yeah. But also, I think it's important to do the work before you bring somebody into this world because life happens. I mean, in a year or two or 6 months, you might need therapy for 3 years of what can happen
Hmm.
to a person in 6 months, right? So
Absolutely.
imagine being 30 something or 40 something years old and how much stuff hasn't you unpacked yet.
Hmm.
And you're bringing someone into this world, right? And sometimes I feel like in order to be the most effective parent that you could possibly be, or healthiest, right,
Yeah.
that you could possibly be, you should unpack as much as possible, if you can,
Hmm.
before you bring a child into this world. Just what are your thoughts on
Absolutely. I absolutely say it louder for the people in the back. Absolutely. And I think, yeah, and I love that you recognize, right? Like it's not like a goal of perfection that you will have unpacked everything and it's done. It is being willing to navigate the world feeling comfortable with this experience of being uncomfortable, right? Like to be able to say, I know I don't know it all. I know I don't have it all figured out, but I know myself well enough where I can seek out the resources that I need when I've reached a point where it's like, oh, I've come as far as I can with this.
that?
And I think that that's the challenge is if more people went to therapy, what a different world it would be. Like just period, end of sentence.
Mm-hmm.
When we don't unpack our stuff and we all have stuff, right? Like that's
Yes.
that's not a character flaw. We all have
No.
stuff.
Yes.
I say to people like the challenge with being in relationship is the fact that we're in relationships with humans.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Humans are just tough, right?
Yeah.
They're imperfect, and we, because we're humans, we're also part of that imperfection, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's the loop. And so we need to be able to recognize that we're shaped by parents who do the best they can under most
Yeah.
circumstances, but
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
imperfect.
Yeah.
And so to recognize that we just need to hold ourselves to a standard of being willing to have that insight and that exploration. There's so much talk in the field of therapy about intergenerational trauma, the
Yeah.
idea that patterns get repeated, and even if trends are skipped, that there are still, a true impact on future generations. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's like if we could normalize those discussions and
Mm-hmm.
help people feel empowered in saying, hey, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to unpack my stuff and not feel like they need to blame previous generations and have
Right.
previous generations not feel blamed,
Mm-hmm.
it would make such a difference. What I say to people about working in the realm of perinatal and maternal mental health is I say, when we can support a mom, right? When moms are supported, families
Mm-hmm.
thrive. And what I say is like, we can't even begin to measure the positive dividends that will come from healthy families raising children, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's just that's going to change so many aspects of society, our healthcare system. And so we need to be able to normalize that. And we shouldn't have this expectation where pursuing therapy when you are pregnant or postpartum is something that comes into play because you're having a difficult time. It
Right.
should be that you're navigating something that can be difficult. You should
Yes.
naturally have support for that.
Yes. 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 And I think when it comes to therapy, the reason why I take that approach that I'm taking is because one, I'm a person who doesn't want to bleed on my partner, and I don't want to bleed on my kids.
Mhm,
Right? I don't want to be in a place where now I'm shedding on them. Right?
mhm. Yeah,
In each stage of life, there's going to be some type of trauma at some point. So my thought process is if I could shed, even if it's 70% of it,
yep,
I'd rather start off as a husband or a father at 25% trauma versus
absolutely.
85% trauma, right?
Yeah.
And then we can still chip away,
Hmm.
right?
Well, and the idea that even if it's like a heavy bleed, right, to use that parallel, um, you're not going to stand around bleeding on the people that you love, expecting them to fix it, and that you're going to be able to teach your kids what it is to get
Right,
some help when you're bleeding and what it
right,
is to put a band-aid on, right? Because
right.
that's a huge thing for our kids to see our imperfect humanness and to know
Hmm.
that that's an okay thing and
Hmm.
that getting support with that is part of navigating the human condition.
Mm. And speaking of an imperfect human being, it's just kind of you got my mind kind of going here. An imperfect human being, do you think sometimes the issues could be because we're imperfect, which is natural,
Mhm.
but we have perfect expectations of ourselves and others, right? It-
Absolutely.
It's very interesting when I look at that of we're all imperfect, but we don't give ourselves grace a lot with a lot of different things because we have these expectations of what we think we should be doing, how far
Hmm.
along we should be in life, right? What our spouses should be, what they should be
Right.
doing for us, right?
Hmm.
To me, that's like an automatic something that's like a thing that could be automatically traumatic off the just automatically, right?
Right.
Because we're already imperfect. But yet we expect this perfection from ourselves, and then we don't give ourselves grace. And then, therefore, if we don't give ourselves grace, we're surely not giving our partner grace,
Nope. And to
right?
recognize that so much of that is those societal narratives, right?
Yeah,
What is a good partner, right? Like here's what I should expect from my partner. And if my partner is going to, be my partner, here's what he or she needs to look like. This comes up with all things like postpartum planning. I co-created a course focused on postpartum planning for couples.
ooh,
And one of the things that we talk about is, you know what, we assume that most people are in a healthy, imperfect, but a healthy relationship.
mm-hmm,
And I
mm-hmm,
always say, as you are navigating all things pregnancy and postpartum, everyone is sleep deprived, everyone's, navigating uncharted territory. At a minimum, you need to assume good intent from your partner,
mm-hmm,
right? who do you in general know your partner to be, and then who your partner may be showing up as in this whole parenting experience. We want you to be able to just kind of assume some good intent from them so that if they ask for something or if they snap about something or whatever it may be, like to really kind of pause and say, who is this person overall? And not
Mm-hmm.
look at it through this lens of, I have this idealized vision and expectation, again, for myself and for my partner.
Mm. And that's so powerful because, in my growth phase of life, the one thing I've really tried to hone in on, right, in these stages of my life, right, is how I respond, right, to something I feel was unjust towards me. Because I'm
Mhm.
a person, I don't, conflict is, I'm cool with having a conversation. I'm cool with
Yeah.
diving deeper. I'm cool with all of it, right? Right. And I don't like to start things.
Hmm.
But when I was younger, Doc, when I was younger, if I'm being honest, I like to, I won't start it. I want to finish it, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
That was my toxic trait.
Yeah.
Hey, that's what it was, right? And not understanding, a lot of times that doesn't help a relationship,
Hmm.
right? Because now it's not even about what this person said to me or yell or whatever. Now it's about how I responded, right? To
Yes.
what they
Yeah.
already said about me, right?
Yes. Yep. Oh,
And
absolutely.
and so what I've learned is really mastering the art of of listening and restraint,
Mm.
right? And then responding in terms of just, hey, okay, who is this person? And like you said, and that's exactly what my mindset is. Who is this person to me,
Hmm.
right? And then at that point, that's the grace. Because as
Yeah.
soon as I'm ready to go,
Hmm.
because now I almost had a relapse. Okay, so who was this person in front of me here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Hmm.
Let me investigate now. Let me dive a little bit deeper
Yeah.
into, is this really about Terrence? Or is this
Hmm.
about something else?
Hmm.
And so now it's more important for me to get down to the root cause of things versus just my feelings at the time.
Right.
And
Hmm.
normally what I find is at that point, the opposition will go, I'm sorry,
Hmm.
that wasn't that wasn't for you. And I
Yeah.
apologize. Right. And I'm like, okay, okay, right. This
Hmm.
this works for me right now.
Oh, yeah.
But it took some time, Doc. It took a little bit to grasp those waters because my first instinct, mm-mm, okay,
Hmm.
mm-hmm, dial it back. Had to swap, okay. All right, now let me get it. Okay, so now I can investigate further to unpack your stuff and try to figure this out and what is going on, right? Instead of
Yeah.
now pouring gasoline
Yeah.
on
Well,
this
I was
thing.
just going to say, right? Like you're in a place to respond, not react. And it's the
Mhm.
reacting that becomes like this, kind of explosive dynamic. I
Yeah.
refer to it as the power of the pause, right?
Mm,
When you can pause,
mm,
right?
mm.
Take a breath.
Oh, yes.
I always say to people, whatever great thing you have to say, right? Whatever zinger you could give somebody, it'll be just as powerful like 30 seconds from now. Like if you really feel like you need to give it. But the
Hmm.
power of the pause, where it's like that allows for us to self-regulate a little bit
Yeah.
because
Because,
the
right.
reactionary piece just people feed off of each other.
Oof, yes. And those zingers come fast for me. Like it almost
I'm good at it. Yeah, no, no,
instantaneously.
no. I hear
It's
you. Yeah,
it's
no, I'm good.
it's it's so sometimes it really that pause is sometimes it's so hard for me to stop because it comes fast. And I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
okay, we gonna let this one go.
So, well, I was going to say, but that pattern of recognizing that in many ways, that sort of dynamic, right, where
Hmm.
you pause, it actually gives you a better forum, for lack of a better term, but a better opportunity to have your point be heard.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely, and you're
Yeah.
2000% correct. And I think these are the things as we navigate postpartum with couples, right?
Oh,
These are the things that can help and aid in even their discourse and problems because sometimes women don't even know what's going on with themselves.
uh,
And if
so
but and you said men don't.
no, and so that's what I was going to say is it's like there's not enough kind of standard education, right? Women are seeing their
Hmm.
OBs, and there's not enough real conversation around perinatal, right? We always think of the mood disorder piece as being postpartum, but it's perinatal. There are women who experience pregnancy anxiety. Pregnancy brings depression. So it's not all just postpartum, but that's what most of us focus on, that we think that these are things that can come up once someone has given birth.
Hmm.
And so the bottom line is there are women who navigate through their pregnancies with mood disorders that could truly be treated, but nobody's talking to them about how are you feeling? What's showing up for you? There is certainly an element of anxiety that's normalized with parenting, and that's pregnancy and postpartum. And for a lifetime of parenting, there's an
Hmm.
element of anxiety.
Hmm.
But being able to just have the conversations to help people recognize, whereas I say that anxiety can be helpful, it's actually kept us alive from an evolutionary perspective. We have anxiety, we avoid situations that would kill us. Like it's a good thing. What happens is when anxiety becomes no longer that it's helpful, it becomes very hurtful. And so
Hmm.
anxiety can paralyze people. We need to be able to have these conversations about the mood variations and disorders during pregnancy. And it would be great for partners to hear about this sort of stuff as well. Um,
Hmm.
One of the things that I do with postpartum clients is we have them set up kind of like a daily check-in.
Hmm.
And I say to them, it's a check-in for yourself and it's a check-in with each other. And what I
Hmm.
say is, I want you to think of your daily high. What was the thing that went well today? And what was your daily low?
Hmm.
What was really shitty? And I want you to check in with that for yourself. And then together, just share your high and your low. And what
Hmm.
I say is, you need to pay attention for yourself if there is a theme to your lows, right? If every day for 3 days, the low is focused on one particular topic or element, we need to look at that. But I also say that partner wise, you need to pay attention to what the low is for your partner,
Hmm.
right? They may not be able to see it. You need to be listening to it as well.
Hmm. Hmm. I love this. God, I could talk to you all day. So when it comes to now, correct me, please correct me
Yeah,
if I'm wrong. So in my mind, right, when I think of postpartum and conflicts with a couple,
yeah,
I feel like grief is a big part of both parties, right? Because the the woman separately could be grieving the body she used to have, um, right? The nights out with her girlfriends, people
yeah,
checking on her versus now checking on just the baby only,
yeah,
um, right? Just missing out on, oh, I miss the woman that I used to be, right? Um, and grieving like, okay, why doesn't my husband understand? Right?
hmm,
Why doesn't he do this? Right? Or that? Or why doesn't he
yeah,
support me in the way that I need him to support me? I'm grieving those things. How come he can just get up and go out to the bar with his friends till 8 o'clock at night and I'm still stuck here with the baby? I'm grieving those things.
hmm,
Don't you think I really want to go out at 8 o'clock, with my girlfriends? Right? Right? Um, and grieving a lot of just different things going on. And then the man on his side is saying, man, I really miss the woman that I know. I miss the woman I married. I miss the
hmm.
person that was so fun loving and loved me, right? And did stuff with me, right? So now, yeah, I'm going to
Absolutely.
the bar with my friends because they want to spend time with moi,
Yeah,
right? I wish she
yeah,
understood me. She doesn't want me anymore. There's no time for us, right?
no.
And then I miss, right? I miss sleep. I miss the things, right?
Oh,
And it feels
okay.
like there's a lot of gut-wrenching grief, right? That sometimes can be unsaid between the two parties. And then that turns into resentment, right? And a lot of
Yeah.
just those different things, right? So talk to me a little bit.
Well, I mean, I love that you like make all of those connections because that's what happens. So we don't talk about grief with pregnancy and parenting enough.
Hmm.
And it's somebody who works with specifically with grieving parents, like there's still this element of grief that with pregnancy, your lifestyle changes, right? There are certain things that you can't eat and certain things that you can't drink. Like, and it's a normalized piece. And so people don't really think about it through the lens of that you're grieving, right? That it's a loss. If we look at the most straightforward forward pregnancy, uneventful, and then we look at the most straightforward labor and delivery, right? Like no complexities, nothing difficult. There are still so many layers of grief. One of the things that comes up for women through pregnancy is they're like, my partner goes off to work, goes out, goes to do whatever, can go to Target, and people don't know that he's going to be a father. I'm trying to get myself through Target to pick up a few things I need, and I'm getting all sorts of unsolicited opinions from people about pregnancy and what I should do or what I shouldn't do.
Ooh,
And so it's like the identity of mother really
mm,
does happen with pregnancy.
mm,
And so that's part of, I think, what changes the postpartum experience.
mm.
More so for fathers, they become a father when baby arrives. Women
Right.
become mothers when they are pregnant.
Wow. Okay, so and it's interesting when we talk about grief because if you look at yourself as an individual, and if you don't have any kids,
Mhm.
you grieve things. You lose a job, you grieve it, especially if it was a high-paying job. That's grief,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
If you lose a relationship, that's grief, and people just think it's for death, right? It's not just for death. These are things. If you lose a friendship, there's
Oh
really
yeah,
raw
that's a
grief
big
there,
one. Yes, no,
right?
that's I'm glad you brought that one in.
People just
Yeah.
think, oh, I lost my boyfriend. No, if you lose a friend, it's a
Yeah.
problem, right? And
Yeah.
then yes, there's divorces. That's grief, right? There's so many different things. You go on social media and you think that you're behind in life because of what you see on social media. And now you're saying, I haven't done enough. I should be here by the age of 40, should be here by the age of 35, 45, whatever that is for you.
Hmm.
And look at everybody else. They're married, they're this, they got kids, and I'm just me, right? So
Hmm.
you begin to go down a rabbit hole of grief, even as a single
Absolutely.
person. So what do you
Well,
think you do
yeah. No,
as a
I was,
married person or a
yes.
parent? It's
Well, and I was going to say, and to look at it through the lens of that when people have been actively trying to conceive, right? Like people have been actively family planning, then the idea that there's an element of grief with all of this really does not align, right? Like
mm,
it does not make sense. This was something that we wanted. Why are we feeling the disconnect from all of the old aspects of life? We're feeling the
mm,
disconnect from each other.
mm,
This actually comes up a lot with couples who have navigated with IVF. Um, People who've navigated IVF are, also vulnerable to having all things either perinatal in pregnancy or postpartum at navigating all kinds of mood disorders. Like the the IVF process is such a difficult one and is grueling mentally, emotionally, and physically. And then people are often surprised if they experience depression after giving birth. They're like, we worked so hard for this baby. Right? I knew this was something I wanted. And it's like, yes. And you are still navigating all of the societal shifts, all of the personal sacrifices that come into play. And I
mhm,
think that for couples, it's almost like they don't have anyone supporting them and having those discussions ahead of time. That's something that Kelsey and I are passionate about trying to
mhm,
help couples do. And let's be honest, the majority of couples are not seeing a therapist before they get married. They're not seeing a therapist before they embark on their relationship and decide to have a family, right? And so
Mhm.
even if you've done the individual work, there's still room for that relationship component because that's a
Absolutely.
whole other element that comes up. And so then people navigate through what is the most significant change that you can experience in life. And they are suddenly parents and they are trying to figure that out individually, collectively, and then through that broader societal lens. So I always try to remind parents, but also couples. I remind people you were individuals before you became partners, and you were
Mhm.
partners before you became parents. You
Yep.
need to honor each layer of who you are.
Mm. Honor each layer of who you are. And I love that because it's 2000% correct. You have to acknowledge those things, honest,
Yeah,
because you could easily lose yourself in parenthood,
absolutely. Yes.
marriage. I would say more so parenthood than marriage, because now it's not really solely about you. It's, it's about this life that you have, that you're responsible for. Um, so you're right about that. And I love that. And kind of off topic, but still on. So, in the spirit of that, right, when you
Yeah.
lose yourself a lot of times, or when you don't acknowledge who you are, right, I realize sometimes, the one of the saddest things for me, and I'll be open and honest with you, Doc, is I remember when my dad passed away, um, and him and my mom
Yeah.
were married 43 years. I mean,
Wow.
beautiful,
That's
right?
such a blessing. That's amazing.
Yeah. Then after that, I saw, of course, what the devastation was with my mom and stuff, and I completely
Yeah.
understood it, right? But then her not knowing, like, right, that part of honoring who she was, because at that point it was, I'm my husband's gone, and my kids are all adults now, and they have their
Yeah.
own
Yeah.
lives.
Yeah.
Who am I? Like my friends, I don't have as many friends, because I just was just mom and wife,
Yeah.
and so
Oh.
that was sometimes sad for me to hear because she was a woman first.
Mm-hmm.
She was a
Mm-hmm.
woman first. She had
Yeah.
so many talents and so many different things that she loved
Yeah.
and this
Oh.
and that, right? But as you get older, right, and you get stuck in those ways, right,
Mm-hmm.
it's I'm mom and I'm wife. And but what happens when, God forbid, that other half is gone and then your kids are older, who have might have a
Absolutely.
wife, might have a husband, whatever the case is, where do you fit
Mm-hmm.
in this life that you feel, right? And your kids
Mm.
can always make you feel, oh yeah, we're gonna do this and that, which is great. But who
Yeah.
are you still at the end of the day? So when you said that, it made me feel like, man, like that. And that's why I always say and tell people, whether you're in a relationship, married, whatever, keep on to your friends.
Yeah.
Like me, I tell my girlfriend, hey man, go out with your girls. Like, have fun, right? Never forget who you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
you know, and creating those habits of making time for you, right? Hey, go out with your girls, go get a massage, go
Absolutely.
do certain
Absolutely.
things for yourself because
Mm-hmm.
that always stuck to me. And I was like, man, like, no, like, I, we let's keep this rolling, start this from
Yeah.
now, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that later, if God forbid anything happens to me, no matter it's devastation, but you'll still reach back and say, "Oh, I still have my
Yeah.
friends that we can
Right.
go get coffee with in the morning at 7 o'clock or a matinee,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
whatever it is that you choose." So I just, I wanted to share that because that's what reminded me of that, and that's why I always say, Terrence, don't ever forget about you either. Go watch
Mm-hmm.
your sports.
Absolutely.
Go do
Yes.
the things, right? And have your friends and your village as well. And don't forget who you are.
Well, those things make us better partners,
Yeah.
right? Like having that. And I was thinking, when you were saying about your mom and how sweet for your parents, truly, right? Like such a
Mhm.
loss of your dad.
Yeah.
And you were saying, right, that your mom was a woman and her creativity. And I was thinking, yeah, but you know what? She brought that into her role as a mom, right? Like
She did.
she brought that in.
She did.
Um, I feel like this is a common theme that comes up with the moms that I work with, where women are concerned about losing their identities, right? And
Yeah.
losing themselves in motherhood. And so the example that I kind of use to kind of have a visual for it is we all have many roles, right? And just looking at it through the lens of women, it's like you are a daughter, potentially a sister, you are a friend, you might be an employee, you are a partner, right? Like you have all of these different roles that make who you are.
Mhm.
And then it's like you introduce the mom role. And that role, it's like the neon flashing lights, it's at the front of the stage,
Mm.
right? Like mom is there.
Yeah.
The other roles aren't gone, they're still
Hmm.
on the stage.
Hmm.
And so when you are early in parenting, postpartum especially, but the first handful of years when you have little children who
Hmm.
demand so much of you,
Yeah.
I'm like, so the mom piece is going to be more prominent,
Hmm.
but there's room on the stage for every part. And the
Hmm.
example that I use, it kind of makes sense for most women, as I say, right? You love your best friend, right? Your best friend knows
Yeah.
that you love her.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, right?
Yes.
Everybody's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm like,
Hmm.
when you're at work, is your best friend on your mind? Probably not, unless she's got something going on. But right, like
Hmm.
when you're at work, your best friend is probably not at the
Hmm.
forefront of your mind.
Hmm.
Does that mean that you're suddenly not loving her? Does this mean that suddenly you're a bad friend? No,
No.
it means that you're in work mode and she just had to go back towards, the back end of the stage a little bit.
Hmm.
And so being able to kind of recognize that we have these identities and we are moving through them constantly. We're kind
Hmm.
of shuffling through. It's not a stagnant thing of, like here's what matters most all the time. And
Right.
so this comes up a lot for women when they're going back to work and they're trying to reconcile what it is to be a working mom.
Hmm.
And that idea that I'm like, you are allowed to focus on work, and that doesn't make you a bad mom.
Right.
And it also doesn't make you a bad employee if you're having a time period where you're a little more focused on your little one.
Mm.
So being able to honor that there are different facets of us, and I, again, looking through the lens of parenting, it's like parents can show up as their full, attentive, present selves when they have fulfilled some of their other needs, because they do have needs beyond being parents. Being a parent is a fantastic
Hmm.
thing, but it's not all of who somebody is.
Absolutely. In the spirit of supporting women, and mothers, right, who are worried about, I guess, that identity. If you could, um, speak to the men a little bit about, from your eyes or from your professional lens, what can they do, right, to be a support to their spouse, right? Um, so that they can ensure, and even if they can't ensure, but if they can be an advocate for their own partner, right? That,
Yeah.
hey, be an individual. You still need you time. How can I support you better? Like, how can men be more of an advocate for women as they're navigating this process, um, of motherhood and womanhood?
Okay. And what I was going to say, and how is it like that they can advocate specifically for their partner, right? Like, because I
Yeah, to
think
be
that
an aid.
sometimes this comes up
Right.
that men will say, right? Like partners and dads will say, like, go do whatever you want to do, right? Like just go.
Hmm.
And these women don't go. They don't go. And then women are feeling like frustrated and overwhelmed. And men are like, what the hell? Like I told you want to go, like go, go to brunch, go get a massage, go do whatever. And so through the male brain, in many ways, it seems very simple, right? It's problem solving, right? You're having a difficult time, you're feeling isolated. Here's an answer. Go do this. And to recognize that what happens for women is they almost sometimes feel paralyzed
Mm.
because it becomes this whole idea of I'd love to get a massage, but how long am I going to leave the baby? Am I going to be able to relax and enjoy that massage? If they're breastfeeding, how am I going to figure out pumping, right? Like just looking at logistics. I don't feel great about my body. I don't want anybody touching my body. That's why I'm not hanging out too much with my husband or my boyfriend, because I don't want anybody touching my body because I don't feel great about it.
Mm.
All of the things where you're like, girl, you used to love going for a massage.
Right.
And suddenly it's like the thing that you loved feels like such a burden.
Mm.
So for men to be able to look at this through the lens of recognizing that even the things that used to work may look a little different, and to be able to say, kind of like, what is it that you need? Would a massage be helpful? If not a full body massage, do you want to go get a pedicure and make sure that you do the foot massage with it, right? Like to kind of do some of that troubleshooting.
Mm,
And I think part of the challenge is that women have a hard time verbalizing, I'm worried about leaving the baby for too long. Suppose the baby cries. And so that becomes a whole other thing of, I feel like I'm the only one who can make sure that that baby is content and happy.
mm,
So, A, I feel like I have that skill set, but B, I feel like it's a burden. And so these are the conversations that they need to have beyond the idea of go out with your friends or go get a massage. It's, do you feel like we're showing up as partners in the parenting piece? I think that in general, and you said it beautifully, right? Like kind of the idea of, what happened to the woman I love? Like, where'd she go? And what I say to dads is, she's wondering the same damn thing.
uh, oh,
Same thing.
mm, mm,
And so, if we can kind of approach it through that lens of legitimately some curiosity, right? Where do you feel like you've gone? What do you miss? Like, what are the things? Here are the things that I miss. I feel like one of the things that can be hard for men is again, because they kind of go into problem solving mode, right? Like,
mm,
oh, this, then that. It's almost like everybody needs to be willing to acknowledge that all of the things that they know is not everything that they need to know. And so they need to be willing to be a little curious, ask some questions, and just kind of sit with the idea of hearing what the other person's experience is. As you had said, the power of the pause, right? Like that idea of what does it look like for me to say, I don't want to fix this. I do want to fix it. I'm not going to fix it.
mm,
There's an acronym called WAIT, WAIT.
mm-hmm.
Why am I talking?
Ooh,
Yeah.
why am I talking? Mm,
We have
mm-hmm.
a tendency to like the fill the quiet. As somebody who can chat like nobody's business, I can appreciate it, but it is that idea that
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we need to be willing to sit in some of the discomfort
Mm,
and to say, right, like, what do you miss? What feels like it might be a good fit?
mm-hmm.
That when somebody's saying, I feel overwhelmed, I haven't seen my friends, I haven't taken a shower in 3 days, I don't know when I last brushed my teeth, and I haven't worn anything but, leggings and a nursing bra. And so men are like, well, I'll hold the baby, go take a shower, put on something different. And she can't put on anything else different because nothing else fits. Like it just, and these are all like internal experiences that women don't even have the bandwidth to say, here's my internal experience because they have their own judgment. I don't want to tell you that none of my clothes fit because I don't want you to realize that I don't look like I used to.
Mm. Wow. And that's that's a lot because and thinking about myself, sometimes just putting myself in that shoe, it's yes, I'm a fixer, right? That's a man thing.
Yeah.
I understand, but it's also I'm really big on mental health too, which is a
Yeah.
different
Yeah,
component
you
to
are.
me, right?
Yeah.
So now I'm like, okay, so what do you need? You need a therapist, you need this, like what? All right, so now I'm on the internet searching for therapists for
Yeah.
okay, all right, so does she need a mommy club? All right, so let me come to some mommy club. Okay, all right, all right, so what can we and that probably can be a little bit overwhelming, right? Could be. Especially when
It
it's all
could
at
be.
once. Especially
Hmm.
when it's all at once, because I'm good to shoot off an email, like a
I
therapist.
love it.
Hey, here's like 10 therapists, here's 10 mommy clubs, here's
Hmm.
here's postpartum, here's by the time I send like fire off 10 emails, that might be a lot. Right, right. So I think that is the power of the pause, right?
Hmm.
And the why am I talking, right?
Yeah.
And also why am I thinking?
Mm.
That is a part that could be a part of the weight
Hmm.
because me, the way I think, the thinking becomes the talking. So for me, it's the thinking that has to stop to say, okay, pause,
Okay. Yeah,
pause the
yeah.
thinking, because
Okay.
as she's talking, I'm thinking about 20 or 30 different things that I could do
Hmm.
for resources first, and
Right,
then
right.
and that's not including what I can do. I
Hmm.
haven't gotten to what I can do physically. And all
Yeah,
right, cool. So I'm gonna take the baby, do
that's
this one, do that,
amazing.
I'm gonna do that. You can just
Yeah.
go through that. And now in a half hour, you got 30 emails, and I'm taking on
Hmm.
everything, right? And for
Hmm.
her, that's probably like, that may not be what I need, right?
Well, I was going to say, and that's the thing, the idea of going to a mom group
Mm-hmm.
can be a fantastic, like it's a fantastic thing. And theoretically, there are a lot of women who are here for it. And
Mm-hmm.
then there are the ones that are like, oh my gosh, I can't get anywhere on time, right? Like I can't move out of my own way. The idea
Mm-hmm.
that I'm going to hold myself to an expectation to be somewhere on time
Mm-hmm.
feels like it's too much. Um, I think I have this saying that in general, the time to find a therapist is when everything is going swimmingly in life, right?
Yep.
When you are living your best life, find your therapist. Because when you are not living your best life, it is really hard to come up with the bandwidth, right? To do the search and to make that happen. And then you're not in the best place to really figure out if it's the right fit, right? Like you're feeling
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, I found someone, I need to do this. And so it's almost like the time to find the mommy and me groups, the breastfeeding groups, the all of those things is when you're in pregnancy and not in the mode of, oh my gosh, right, this is something that we need. It's almost like you can be proactive with it. And
Versus
I am a
reactive.
firm, right? And I am a firm believer that we should normalize meeting with a therapist who is trained in perinatal mental health throughout pregnancy, right? Like offer it, not make
Mm-hmm.
it mandatory, but
Mm-hmm.
once each trimester, right? And then have an automatic check-in postpartum. We wait 6 weeks, which is too long. 6 weeks, post delivery is too long, but we could have a mental health check-in at
Mm-hmm.
that 3 week mark where it's like, okay, if you are experiencing mood issues, it's probably not the baby blues. We need to look at this more closely, and we should just normalize this. We should also
Wow.
normalize meeting with a pelvic floor physical therapist. There are all kinds of things that we should just normalize because it would be easier for a woman to have three check-ins with a therapist and then a postpartum check-in with a therapist because it's going to allow everybody an opportunity to troubleshoot and see here may be some potential challenges. Or for somebody to say, hey, listen, I got this, right? Like, I guess it's going really well. It just would make so much more sense. I don't have the bandwidth quite yet to transform the healthcare system to make it
All right.
respond in a way, but maybe next week, we'll see.
Yeah. So, uh, the part of your journey, and a part of what you do, fortunately, is dealing with infant loss, right?
Yeah.
Um, and that is it's unfathomable, just what that would look like, right?
Yeah.
Um, so when it comes to that part of your practice, can you speak a little bit to what it is that you do in that part of your
Hmm.
practice and why it's so important?
Hmm. At some point, you and I could have a whole conversation that intersects, right? Like all of the postpartum piece and all of the grief piece in that intense way. Um, I think that my work with families who are experienced or have experienced perinatal and infant loss, that is probably the most rewarding work that I do.
Wow.
I I stand in awe of the strength of
Hmm.
of parents. And I stand in awe of people's willingness to truly be so vulnerable with me,
Yes.
right? Like I refer to that kind of loss as being, in essence, unspeakable. Nobody has the language for it. Tragedy that your dad died, but that followed like the order of operations that our parents die and then we die. Children are not supposed to die before parents.
Right.
And so society has a very difficult time comforting parents who have lost a child.
Hmm.
And when we look through the lens of pregnancy loss, people have a lot of misinformation and kind of misinformed ideas about miscarriage.
Mm.
And then when we look at abortion, a whole other realm that people do not recognize the reality of grief that comes into play with abortion.
Mm.
We have stillbirth that, babies do at times die in utero. So there's the component of we think of if you make it through 12 weeks of pregnancy, somehow you're safe, right? That if you haven't miscarried, that there is an element of safety. And that's true that people, have that experience. But then when we have situations such as stillbirth or termination for medical reasons, that somebody they reach 12 weeks and then they have genetic testing done and they find out that their baby has a condition that's incompatible with life. So there's so much stigma, so much misinformation,
Mm.
and there's so much shame and guilt. And I feel so honored to hold space for those people and to talk about what it is to be a parent who does not have a child here, because that's a whole other piece of, right? When someone is pregnant, when a woman is pregnant, she becomes a mother. And so what does it mean to go from being a mother to then not having a baby? And that is through miscarriage, stillbirth, termination for medical reasons, or a baby dying shortly after birth.
Wow. Wow.
It's
And
it's one of my favorite topics to talk about,
wow.
which I say to people does not make me popular at cocktail parties, but it is literally one of my favorite topics to talk about.
Wow. And maybe, if you'd like, we can do something on that.
I would
Because I'm
welcome
open,
it.
because I'm open to obviously that and being an advocate for that as well, and
Yeah.
having those conversations too, which are tough. Um, in all of these things that you go through and the clients that you have, um, I don't take it for granted that you have your own things, and
Mhm.
when you hear so many different stories and so much different pain, so many different things that go on, these things can affect you as well. I would think, could be wrong.
Oh, no, absolutely. That's therapists in therapy. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Just like I don't know how doctors lose patience and stuff. It just
Yeah.
makes like whoa. Um, so for the therapists out there, right?
Mhm.
And it could be somebody who just got licensed for the first time. Why is it important for them to get a therapist?
I mean, it sounds like if you are a therapist, you shouldn't need therapy, right? Like when you think about it, how people would, look at it, they're like, in essence, don't you have your shit pulled together?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no, I've got it pulled together enough so that I can recognize when I need support pulling it together.
Absolutely.
Um, I think that the pandemic really highlighted and normalized therapy for everyone, but
Mm-hmm.
really kind of highlighted the idea that therapists needed to make sure that we had the support that we need in real time. And so there are so many different elements because therapy is a key part, but also being able to look at any kind of consultation. Kelsey and I run a consultation group, a mentorship program for therapists who are new to working with the realm of perinatal and maternal clients.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the support that you can get with your cases and things that you navigate that does
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily need to be under the realm of therapy. But I think when you become the container for people who are navigating all kinds of horrific circumstances, you need to be very aware of how that can impact you and what you can do to mitigate that. And so therapy is a piece of that. But I mean, for me, I want to make sure that I don't burn out. So
Mm.
I am very intentional with scheduling. I make sure that I give space between sessions so that I've got a few minutes to kind of get my head in the game for whoever's
Mm-hmm.
coming next.
Mm-hmm.
And that I've got a few minutes to kind of be like, okay, right? Like That's what we navigated before I go to the next person. So, and it's a privilege for me to be able to create my own schedule, but it's something that's really important to me. And
Hmm.
just being able to recognize that balance in life, being able to make sure that I get outside, I do yoga, time with friends, like all of those things, but
Hmm.
also recognizing that therapy is something that allows me to honor what I need as a person, right? Like therapist is just one of those roles that shows up on the stage. When I'm in session, it's at the front of the damn stage.
Right.
But there are times when mom is the key part. And then there are just all of the other aspects of who I am. And so that's where therapy becomes a helpful piece because I want to make sure that as I navigate the life that I live on a daily basis, um, that it allows me to be in the best place I can be to show up for my clients and for the
Hmm.
work that I do. So it's not the whole piece, right? But it is one of those tools in the proverbial toolbox. Being able to do all the things. I would be lost without my own therapist. I've been navigating a health issue for myself, and it's like she has provided me the space to look at what it is to navigate a health situation, but also I'm like, so what does this mean for me for work, right? I'm going to integrate the two things. How do I integrate it? And so if I did not have therapy, I wouldn't have shown up in that same way. I feel like I would have kind of compartmentalized my health stuff
Hmm.
and not done it the justice that it needed. And so that's the thing is, therapists are human and imperfect humans at that. Like part of the club. I say to people, right? Like I live in the real world too. Like
Yes.
this is it. And so I don't view myself as being the expert on anybody's life. I
Hmm.
I may know some things that can be helpful in guiding them in honoring that they are the expert on their own lives.
Hmm.
Um, it just it's unfair, and this is where looking at that interpersonal connection that I say to people, if you don't feel a good sense of the vibe with me, the knowledge base and the training and the skill set that I have mean nothing. You
True.
need to feel like you've got a connection with me. That's where the magic is going to happen.
Mm. I love that. And you mentioned, the partnership that you have with Kelsey.
Oh, yes.
It's called the Motherload Collective, right?
Mhm.
So what kind of resources and things like talk to me a little bit about the Motherload Collective and what are some of your goals? Like what do you guys do when it comes to workshops? Like talk to me a little bit about that.
Oh, we do all kinds of things, and we are idea people. So we've got all kinds of ideas going on.
Hmm.
So, as a result of navigating, as clinicians who work with moms, the pandemic really highlighted how overwhelmed mothers were and how unsupported. Just society had a hard time supporting moms in the way that they needed. And so Kelsey and I were both individual therapists in private practice, and we both were having the same experience of feeling like we weren't able to help all of the moms that we knew needed help.
Hmm.
And so we ultimately collaborated and we've created the Motherload Collective. And so what we're doing is trying to support moms and couples directly, but also supporting now the clinicians who work with these people. And we feel like that's been able to give us a broader reach. So
Mm.
we have on our website, we have a lot of like free downloads addressing different topics, postpartum preparation, how to baby proof your relationship, right? To talk about those topics. And then we have some workshops that are available on demand for parents. We have a postpartum prep one. We have a preparing for the back to work transition. We gear our workshops towards couples because we feel like far too often women/mothers are the ones who take the information and then disseminate it to their partners. And we felt like we wanted to be able to kind of honor that both of them have a role. And that was one of the things that came up with our postpartum planning workshop that we did. The dads were like, oh my gosh, right? Like, thank you for spelling it out
Hmm.
like this.
Hmm.
So we're doing that with families. We have a self-regulation skills on demand workshop. And we also did one for grief and loss. So we have a workshop geared towards moms who have lost
Mm,
a child. And then working with therapists, because we realized even in doing this work, we weren't able to reach all of the moms and the families that we wanted to. So we are doing a consultation group, like mentorship group for therapists. We've also done foundations of working with the perinatal, client base. And coming up next month, we're doing a workshop focused on working with clients who have navigated perinatal loss and birth trauma. Like these are things that are not common, but they
right.
happen frequently enough that we
Hmm.
realize therapists need to be in a place to support these families. I have, numerous clients who come to me specific for perinatal loss, and
Mm,
they say that they're thankful that I have that knowledge base. And I have had clients that I was working with who ultimately experienced
mm,
perinatal loss and
mm.
said that they felt very thankful that they already had me.
Wow. I mean,
Yeah.
big shout out to Kelsey for the work that she's doing as
Oh,
well.
so much. Yes.
And you, and you
Thank
have
you.
your mom pod. Talk to me a little bit about your mom pod. I want to hear a little bit
So
about that
many
too.
things. So
Yeah.
your mom pod was kind of the brainchild that came during the pandemic,
Uh-huh.
when moms were just having a hard time giving birth during the pandemic was such a difficult thing. And if it was your first baby, you were navigating changing scenery that kind of was a grief and loss experience because you weren't having the birth experience that you had necessarily always envisioned. The idea that women had to go into prenatal appointments alone because their partners couldn't be part of that. And then being in the postpartum experience where they were like, we can't have anybody come and visit in the hospital, or
Mm,
we need to be so selective of who is going to come and help us, right? As we talk about wanting to kind of utilize your village. So this really came as a result of those moms, right? Because they
wow.
came to me virtually, but they came to me
Hmm.
and I was like, oh my gosh, like there's not enough support. So I had some support groups that kind of like came into play with moms who were in similar places of parenting and pregnancy.
Hmm.
And so it was through All Things Your Mom Pod that I connected with Kelsey, who has Like a Mother counseling.
Wow.
Um, and so we connected through a shared passion of wanting to be certified in perinatal mental health. And so
Hmm.
that's how we met virtually. Um, and so your mom pod is really honoring now the part of my private practice that focuses on moms and all things perinatal, and pregnancy and into that motherhood realm. And
Wow.
now the extra groups and trainings that we are doing, we have collaborated on. So yeah,
Wow.
I got a couple of things going on.
And all of it is to for the betterment of us as a people and for
Thank you.
various different communities and the support from others is what we need. And so I'm very proud of you guys and I love the work that you both are doing. Um, one last thing and we'll get you out of here.
No worries.
One last thing, and that is, what would you say, right, to a young woman who is embarking on about to embark or early embarking on their pregnancy journey?
Mhm.
They're unsure. I'm sure it's not, all Disney. I'm sure there's some nerves there, because they're diving into the realm of the unknown, right? Um,
Mhm.
what advice would you give them?
To really wrap your head around being comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? Like in general, we feel comfortable when we know things
Mm,
and that's how we like to navigate. We like to navigate being comfortable. What I say to people is if you're chilly, you put on a sweater. If you're too warm, you take it off. We like to be comfortable. And
mm,
so it really is a skill set to learn how to navigate with an element of discomfort
mm,
and to recognize that it doesn't mean you're unsafe or that anything's wrong. And it's a time to be able, though, to connect with people who do know a little bit more but not necessarily know better than you. I
Mm,
think being able to get information from people allows you to see what settles and what resonates and to, kind of discard the things that don't.
I love that. Um, and so how can people reach you? How can
All kinds
people
of
reach
ways. Um, Looking at things through the lens of women who want to connect, and I do have women who want to connect prior to family planning.
you? Hmm.
So there is janejohnsonwall.com. And then for women who are in the perinatal, pregnancy, postpartum, early parenting realm, there is Your Mom Pod. And some of the couples work that I do is based in helping couples prepare for the changes that come in their relationship with pregnancy and parenting.
Hmm.
And then, if you are a therapist working within this realm and want to know more, or if you are someone who is navigating all things pregnancy and parenting and are looking for support with your partner, specifically, we've got the motherloadcollective.com.
Listen, for all of you out there, there's no if there's something out there for you. So if you really want to get a hold of Dr. Jane Johnson Wall here, you can absolutely do so. And I just want to take this time out to thank you for all of the work that you're doing.
Thank
It's
you.
necessary. It means something. It is sometimes could be thankless work, but I personally just want to thank you for the work that you're doing and for all
Thank you.
of the knowledge that you have bestowed upon this audience and myself. Thank you for that. Um,
Thanks
because
for the
you,
opportunity.
yeah, of course. I didn't know, I mean, you are an expert at what you do. You may not call yourself an expert, but I'm going to say it for you. She's an expert at
Thank you.
what she
Thank
does,
you.
and she does it well. And I look forward to our next podcast. I'm just going to put that out
Yeah, no, I
there.
think that would be great. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I think we just need to do it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We're gonna do it. And thank you for that. And ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Jane Johnson Wall. Uh, Thank you again. This has been another episode of Conversations with the Heart as we navigate this postpartum series. Thank you for tuning in and listening and learning with us. And till next time, tune in next week. Thank you guys. Peace.